On behalf of the entire Stanford community, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. I'm delighted to get the chance to have this conversation. I'd like to structure the interview around two forms of leadership, your approach to leading the global alliance, and then secondly, Renault-Nissan's leadership in both electric vehicles and autonomous driving. Two things, I'll promise all my questions won't be as long as this first one, and please excuse my, my French accent. But if we could go back to 1999, you were the deputy COO of Renault, which at the time was, I think, 44% owned by the French government. As the dean said, Nissan was hemorrhaging money. I believe you found later only 4 of 43 models it sold were profitable. It had lost domestic market share for 27 years in a row. It had $21 billion of debt. Daimler Chrysler, the world's biggest car maker at the time, did their diligence, backed out of an acquisition. They said they would have been better off putting $5 billion in a shipping container and putting it in the ocean than investing in Nissan. Louis Choiser, the CEO of Renault, told you he was willing to bet the company's future on the alliance with Nissan, but only on the condition that you would agree to lead the recovery. And I guess at a personal level, your wife and 4 children had just moved back to Paris from the US, and you didn't speak Japanese. How did you think about that offer to go to Nissan?
Well, look, I think from time to time, you have opportunities coming, you are not expecting them. You just have to make a decision, you take them or not. Independently of how much chance of success you have, it's, I would say, irrelevant. Even if I consider I had 10% of chance of being successful, I would have taken it because we all want to make something which outlasts us in a certain way, something where you're bringing a strong contribution, which is measurable, which is visible, where you can really, say there was a before and after. And this was this huge opportunity. Obviously, it was a complete mess in my own life, professional life, personal life. Because we were, coming back from the United States, settling in Paris, buying a house, etc. Kids were moving to the French system, and all of a sudden, tell them we're going to go to Japan, and nobody spoke Japanese, nobody knew anything about Japan. But you need to make a choice. I saw from the beginning that this was a huge opportunity, obviously extremely dangerous because you had no certainty of any kind that you would prevail. But I had no hesitation. From the beginning, I said, well, that's it. I was expecting something like this to happen, and I took it immediately.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your first day at Nissan was like? I mean, what do you do in that situation?
Well, you're going to be disappointed because, when you arrive, first day you arrived in Japan, you don't speak Japanese. Everybody who has been educated into the Western system, the knowledge about Asia is pretty poor. Pretty, simplistic. I didn't speak Japanese. I know too much about Japan. I obviously had Japan in the back of my mind because of the importance of Japan in the car industry. And the first day I arrived, I also was looking for my translator because without my translator, I could not do anything. Just to get to know her. How do you make a phone call? What's the list of the name of the people that you need to meet first, people in the executive committee, the corporate officers, where are the main location, the plant's location of Nissan, what are the main technical centers of Nissan. So I was, during my first day, trying to establish just the communication system and the list of the places where I need to go and the people I need to meet.
So I can think of a number of global consulting firms that would have said their core competency is to come in and help you solve problems like this. You specifically didn't want outside consultants?
No.
Why not?
No, when you want to turn around a company, you want to make sure that the solution is coming from inside. Anything that looks like it's an outside-based solution, this is something which has been fabricated by people coming out of the body of the company. Maybe it's much smarter, maybe it's much more adequate, but at the end of the day, everything is about execution, and when it comes to execution, you want people buying in, and people will never buy in as much as it is our plan. It's our own plan. So from the beginning, I know I've been contacted by so many consultant firms who wanted to give a hand. Some of them propose their services free. I mean, even if it looks a little bit strange. I said no, because I wanted really the plan to be Nissan plan, made by Nissan. I mean, I didn't even want the Renault people to be involved into the revival plant of Nissan. I want it to be done by the Nissan people, mainly by Japanese people in Japan, but also the American Nissan people in the United States, European people, etc. So the solution comes from inside, and people would say, this is our plan, and we're going to execute it. Maybe the plan would have been better with a consultant, maybe, it's not sure. But I can tell you, when it comes to execution, you know, it could not have been better, because I had a 100% buy-in when the plan was decided, and people knew that it was their own ideas, obviously remodeled, that were going to be implemented. I had a complete buy-in.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you did differently, or how you helped Renault help itself, or help Nissan help itself?
Let me tell you, that means no matter what is the company which is in trouble, my experience shows me that you don't need to look for the solution outside, it's inside. It is always inside. You just need to look for it. Obviously, solution is not unique. It's a build-up of specific opportunities that you're going to transform into a plan with priorities, with a time frame, with specific goals, and with achievements. So I was just looking for it. I knew it was inside. I was looking for it. And obviously, the best way to look for it is interview as many people as possible, particularly people in critical process area. That's why you need to know a little bit the industry, to know where you're looking for. Let me give you an example. 50% of the P&L of a car company is purchasing. You know, I mean, Nissan has $110 billion sales a year. From the $110 billion sales, you have about $55 billion of buying. We buy parts, we buy commodities, we buy services, we buy transportation, we buy everything. So if you don't buy well, you can do miracles on anywhere you want. You're not going to prevail. You need to make sure that your purchasing process is in line. So number one priority. Number two priority, making sure, for example, that you know exactly what are the segments on the market where you have legitimacy, so you can reestablish your name, you can reestablish the brand into this particular segment. So you need first to establish what are the priority, and then you say, okay, why am I, even though I have a Keiretsu, why my purchasing cost is much higher than, for example, the Renault purchasing cost, which was a smaller company? Why? Why Honda and Toyota is making so much money where Nissan, which is having the same workforce, with the same engineer coming from the same university, part of the same culture, did not get results. So little by little, you go through a very common sense approach where you say, these are the most important processes. Let me go and see the people who are in charge of the process or around this process, interview them. What's wrong? What do you think is wrong? How can we fix it? Okay? So obviously, solutions are not going to come like this. But by listening to hundreds of people into this process, I can tell you that the solution comes very clearly. Now, people usually avoid the dramatic solution. For example, we had overcapacity. Nobody wants to talk about shutting down plants in Japan. Why? Because it is something which is secret. No, you know, shutting down a plant in Japan is something that nobody do. That means it's something which has to be forced at a certain point in time. Dismantling the Keiretsu, nobody's going to tell you Keiretsu is not working. People are going to tell you, yeah, we're buying at a higher price. And then you go see the people in the Keiretsu, and they tell you why they have to sell Nissan at a higher price than Honda and Toyota. So interviewing, asking questions in a very simple way, and then it's going to look very clear. People contribute to it. They may not like the final shape of the plan, but if you commit to results, everybody joins.
So, I mean, it may look like common sense in retrospect, but I think every expert you would have talked to at the time would have said, hey, you know, there's the Japanese way of doing business, and this is how things are done. And every class you would take in how to do business in a global environment would say you respect local cultures. But like, what gave you the confidence to challenge the status quo?
I am not going to challenge, you know, what you're learning at the university, particularly telling you that, you know, but when you go, and you are a foreigner going to Japan, you're going to Japan for one reason, and that's it. It's turning around the company, period. That's what people are expecting from you. How much you work, what do you do, if you have problems, if you have remorse, empathy, nobody cares. Fix it. That's it. That's the message. Fix it. You accept the job, you have to fix it. We had two main problems. One of the main problems of Nissan is that we had $20 billion of debt in 1999, and no Japanese bank, and you know how flexible Japanese bank can be for a Japanese company, no Japanese bank wanted to lend any money to Nissan. So we were facing a cash crunch. Okay, this is immediate death. Okay, so we need to reestablish the trust on it and cut the debt. Second, you need to come back to profit. For 10 years, Nissan had 1% average operating profit, while Honda and Toyota were around 7 to 10%. We had about 1% return on invested capital, where our main competitors were at more than 10%. So there was something wrong. You need to reestablish. You reestablish this, put it right. So I knew from the beginning that what was expected from me is fix it. Fix it. So when you know you need to fix it, you can say, okay, I'm going to make as many changes as necessary to fix the problem, nothing more. Nothing more. So changing the habits, if there is no obvious result, you shouldn't do. But when you know that fixing the company is going to force you to change some habits, well, you need to say it, you need to explain why you're doing it, and particularly you need to commit to the results. Because people don't like change as long as there is no commitment to specific results behind the change. Now, if you commit to specific results, they may give you the benefit of the doubt. And that's exactly what happened in the case of Nissan. As you know, I spent 3 months building the plan, listening to people, and everybody told me, you cannot shut down a plant in Japan. You cannot dismantle the Keiretsu in Japan. You cannot challenge the seniority system in Japan. You cannot put younger people in top jobs in Japan. Diversity, etc., etc. I mean, the list of you cannot do this and that was huge. So I had two choices. First choice, I listened to all of this. Then the consequence is I take back the family, I take back my bag, I go back to France because there was nothing I could do. The second one is I need to fix it. Then I need to say, okay, I cannot do everything, but let's do the changes that are going to deliver results. So I have dismantled the Keiretsu of Nissan, not because I consider the Keiretsu was a wrong solution, but I said the Keiretsu didn't work for Nissan. It's working for Toyota, it's working for Honda, good for them. It didn't work for us. That's why we're changing it. I challenge the seniority system by saying it's not, I have nothing about people who are 50 or 60 or 70 years old, but I don't want a segregation against younger Japanese people who had a lot of talent and who cannot access jobs of responsibility even though they deserve them. So I turned it around. I consider that we need to stop the segregation against young people into the system, and always with a specific objective. That in dismantling the cross-shareholding with many companies. I've done everything, but every single time explained why, and particularly the most important thing, I committed to resign if 1 year after we started the plan, the company would not be in the black. And I said we're going to divide the debt of $20 billion by two within 3 years term, and that the company growth will resume after having 10 years of decline. And I said, if any one of these objectives is not met, I'm out, and obviously with me, all the members of the executive committee. So this commitment, which was very strong, because this was not a commitment in a boardroom. This was a commitment on TV in front of the public, so everybody knew that you're going to have to deliver or get out. Gave me and gave us the benefit of the doubt. The rest of the story, you know it.
So, I mean, Nissan had gone through many strategic plans previously, and I think you famously said strategy is 5% of the answer and execution is 95%. So what does that mean, and how did you actually, what did you do differently?
Well, the 5%, yeah, I said, 5% of the challenge is the strategy, 95% of the execution. I said it as CEO of Nissan, I said it also as CEO of Renault, and I said it as deputy CEO of Renault. When I said it the first time, it was mainly in France, and I was to the top management of Renault in France, because there was a tendency in the company to spend too much time on strategy and leave the execution for other people. And this is where I said, yeah, strategy is fine, it's very important, but it's only 5%. If you don't go to execution after this, the delivery and the performance of the company is going to be very weak. I really believe it. Now, it doesn't mean strategy is not important, but when you establish north, and you know exactly where north is for the company, you've done something very important because you're giving the direction. But if you don't start moving north, if you don't start mapping and establishing milestone, you're never going to be getting there. You're never going to be getting there. You know, in the car industry, if you noticed, when you see the evolution of our industry for the last 30 years, there have been a tremendous change. A lot of companies which were number 1, number 2, number 3 worldwide downgraded and weakened, and a lot of newcomers coming up. When you take a look to the new leaders of the industry, all of them have one thing in common. So obviously you have Japanese, you have Germans, you have Koreans, you have Franco-Japanese, you have everything. There is one thing in common, is the discipline of execution and the importance of processes. That means in our industry, at the end of the day, yes, strategy is important, but at the end of the day, the most disciplined organization, the organization which gives a lot of importance to processes, end up prevailing. Who's number 1 in our industry today? Toyota. Who's number 2? Volkswagen. Who's number 3, depending if you consider volume or revenues? Let's say it's between General Motors and ourselves, Renault-Nissan. Who's number 5? Hyundai, Kia. What a change compared to 20 years ago. When you take a look to the classification of this industry 20 years ago, it's a complete change. What's in common for at least 4 out of these 5 top companies? Big discipline in execution, a lot of importance given to processes. It's not sufficient, but this is where the difference is being made.
One of the stories that I liked for your initial arrival in Japan was you decided the executives had been too far removed from the product, from the car, and so you moved your executive meetings to the test track. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, I mean, our industry is an industry around the product, and everything starts from there and ends up here. I don't think you can consider anybody to be at the top of our industry without a strong contribution in terms of product, whatever it is, technology or quality or reliability or perceived quality or pricing. Everything is around the product. So understanding the product is absolutely fundamental. And asking top management in our industry, no matter what is their function, they can be chief financial officer, they can be specialist of HR, they don't have to be engineers and specialists of the product. But the fact that they put themselves in the shoes of the consumer, listen to the advantages, the weaknesses, the opportunities, comparing our product to the one of competitors is absolutely essential.
So maybe back to what you talked about for discipline. At Michelin, your second job out of training was, as the dean said, manager of a factory that made huge tires for heavy equipment. I checked our most recent employment report, and there were no factory managers leaving Stanford Business School. Are there things that you learned there that affect your decision-making process as the CEO of 2 global manufacturing companies? Yeah,
I mean, I consider that what we call manufacturing today, or the monozukuri, I use the Japanese term of monozukuri. Monozukuri is everything which covers product planning, engineering, manufacturing, supply chain. This is all the area of the company where the product is born, okay? Versus marketing, distributing, selling, financing, etc. This area of the company, particularly for products which are not commodity, products which are changing all the time, absolutely essential. And starting your career, in my opinion, starting your career in this area, where you are at the crossroad of many things turning around the product, is absolutely essential. I wanted to be in manufacturing because in manufacturing, first you deal with people, second you deal with the product, third we deal with the supplier, then you deal with quality. So everything in one place. And manufacturing, the plant is the first place where the product is born. Before manufacturing, the product is just a fiction. It's on a computer, it's on a design, but the first place where the product exists is in manufacturing. So I wanted to start in manufacturing, and frankly, I don't regret it. And I can tell you some of our top executives, both in Renault and Nissan, not all of them, but some of the top executives often come from a background of what we call monozukuri, and a lot of them from manufacturing.
So going on perhaps a decade of running simultaneously two global companies, how do you get the stamina to keep going and to stay fit, personally and mentally and physically?
Well, somebody said with little discipline, you do little things. With a lot of discipline, you do a lot of things. And with total discipline, there is nothing which you cannot do. It requires a lot of discipline. I mean, obviously, because you're going to move from one world to the other, from one culture to the other, from two completely different company. You have jet lags, organization. People are expecting you when you come down from a plane after 14 hours flight to be fresh and ready for them. They're not expecting a CEO to come and say, oh my God, he's jet lag, he cannot answer a question. They want you to be on the go all the time. So this requires a lot of discipline. You have to organize yourself. If you know you're going to do this job and you accept the job, you have to organize yourself in order to do it. It's tough, but there is a solution. There is a solution for it. But it requires a lot of choices, personal choices. There are a lot of things you cannot do. There are a lot of things you can do, but you're going to do them within a certain order, but particularly with a lot of discipline.
Can you give us some examples of how you've done that personally?
Yeah, I can give you my program. The most simple thing is give you my program for this week and next week, for example. I mean, just not to go. Yesterday, I was into the pre-inauguration of a new plant that Nissan is building in Brazil. So a lot of people are going to say, yeah, lucky you were in Rio de Janeiro, there's no complaint. But I was in Rio de Janeiro, in fact, in the state of Rio de Janeiro, in Resende. I reviewed the new plant of Nissan, which is going to be inaugurated in April. So I spent the day in Resende. Took the plane, flew. I am here today. Later, I'm going to our research center that we have opened in Silicon Valley in order to make sure that we understand what the startups are doing, particularly around autonomous driving. We're going to probably talk about it. So Wednesday night, tomorrow night, I'm going to our headquarters in the United States, which is based in Nashville. We're going to have a review with all the North American team about the performance. I'm going to visit Canton, Mississippi, Friday, which is one of our large plants on Friday. Then I'm flying for Japan. Next week, I will be Monday in Tokyo. I will be in Tokyo from Monday to Friday. Executive committee, board meeting, corporate officer meeting, investment committee, etc. You go through all the elements, and then I'm flying for Paris. So, I mean, I have my schedule for 2014 booked already. So no, you can't. I mean, you have to accept that. I mean, I know exactly where I'm going to be, hopefully, in December 2014. All the board meeting of both companies are already set, executive committee, the visit to the plant. Everything has to be organized. If not, there is no way you can do everything you have to do. From time to time, you have accidents. But fortunately, I'm surrounded by professional people who can adapt to the situation and make the necessary changes. How do you do it? It's possible, but it requires a lot of discipline.
Do you think there are any fundamentals about leadership that transcend a specific company or industry? I mean, do you have a personal leadership philosophy?
Yeah, but leadership also depends on the time. I don't think if you're a good leader today, you're going to be a great leader 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road. And I don't think that the great leader of today would have been a great leader 20 years ago. I think it's adapted with the time. If I take today and the foreseeable future, there are some attributes, in my opinion, which are absolutely necessary for leadership position, particularly for companies, but not only for companies. And the number one attribute, I think, is what I call empathy, the capacity to connect with people. That's extremely important. Why I'm telling you this? Because when I look at the Alliance, we have about 450,000 people working in the Alliance. Our first group of people are Russian. This is the largest number of employees we have are Russians. The second largest group of employees we have is Chinese. The third largest group we have is Japanese, and the fourth is French. And then you continue like this, and you have American, you have British, etc. And when you have 450,000 people with a very large group of people spread all over the world, the capacity to connect, the capacity to understand, the capacity to get out from your own reality and try to see what's on the mind of your own people who are fighting on different fronts is, for me, absolutely essential. And is going to continue to be essential for many years to come. This is a basic attribute. Frankly, if I find somebody in my team and he has no empathy, he doesn't have the capacity to connect, I think it's going to be very hard for him to be in leadership position. Now, having this empathy, this capacity to connect is not sufficient. I'm saying it's a basic and absolutely necessary condition for leadership. Obviously, you have other attributes, but you're asking me some of them. I'm telling you, I consider empathy is probably the most important today.
And I think you would have said, would you say decisiveness is number 2? Is that, I mean,
what was the second one?
Decisiveness. You talked about like the flip side of empathy and decisiveness. And
yeah, decisiveness is number 2, but decisiveness doesn't mean quick decision. Decisiveness means adequate decision at the right time. And the right time may not be the quick time. You know, particularly, I mean, this is something I learned in Asia, because obviously when you take a CEO job in a company, you learn a lot. You learn a lot. One of the things I learned particularly in Japan, that from time to time, making quick decision is going to hurt the execution of the decision. Because what do you want? When you make a decision, what do you want? You want to transform reality. You don't want to make a decision for the sake of making a decision. You make a decision because you want something to change. So your goal is the thing changed. That's your goal. So now the question is, when should you make the decision in order to make sure that this thing has changed in the fastest period of time? So from time to time, you have to wait to make the decision because you're preparing people to execute. From time to time, you need to make the decision very early. From time to time, a little bit late. But when I say decisiveness, mean capacity to take the decision at the appropriate time. Because at the end of the day, what you need is reality changes. That's your goal.
So I know we promised we'd talk about electric cars as well, I mean, but your alliance has made tremendous investment, billions of euros in zero-emission vehicles. At the New York Auto Show in 2011, I think you set a fairly public goal that you would double sales of the Leaf in 2012. Didn't really play out that way. What do you think happened, and what needs to change to move the Leaf and other electric cars from niche players into mass market leaders?
Yeah, well, I consider that the future of our industry is based mainly from still with oil, but second with electricity. When I say electricity, is purely electric car or electrified powertrain. There is no doubt about it. So you see multiplication of the hybrids, mild hybrids, true hybrids, flex fuel, electric cars. We're moving into this direction. One of the reasons for which electric car, now I'm talking about pure electric car, is not moving as fast as we would like it to go, is the lack of infrastructure. We're seeing every single time a city, a state, or a country put the investment in terms of infrastructure, the sales of electric car move up. We are selling today in the United States 3,000 Leaf a month. 36,000 cars. So you're going to say, yeah, but 36,000 cars in the United States, out of, we sell more than 1 million cars in the United States, you're going to say it's peanuts. Yeah, but it's a huge change because people buying the Leaf today, we have the highest level of satisfaction of any other car that they buy, and most of them don't want to change. I mean, they buy an electric car, they're used to electric car, they establish their routine with the charging system, etc. They just love the car, they want to continue with it, and it's increasing. The last 3 months, the most sold car in Norway was an electric car. It was a Leaf. So the Chinese have given to themselves objectives in terms of electric cars, but they didn't bite the bullet yet because there is no Chinese technology for electric cars. They're waiting for Chinese car makers to really master the technology of electric car in order to hit it. Japan is putting a lot of incentive. The charging system in Japan is really developing. I have zero doubt on the fact electric car is a big part of the future. Where we don't control and we are a little bit frustrated in the speed at which the charging infrastructure is spreading. I mean, I can tell you, I was, I think 2 years ago, my daughter, who was on the campus, was driving a Leaf, and at a certain moment in time, she said, okay, I need to charge the car. I said, well, it's interesting. Let's go to the charging station. And at that moment, there were only 2 charging stations on the campus, but both were occupied. So I said, so what? What do you do now? I said, well, I can't drive the car. I need to wait for these 2 cars to be removed. So we've seen, I mean, the charging system is a real concern before we see a takeoff of the sales, but it's coming. It's coming because a lot of cities, a lot of states are investing. It's not only in the United States, but France, Japan, China. We are signing agreement with cities, with different cities now. It's coming. I have zero doubt on it. It's much slower than we thought, but it's not slow because the technology is not ready. It's slow mainly because the infrastructure is not moving fast enough.
You were here visiting the engineering school in May to talk about autonomous vehicles. Can you just share your thoughts about why you're so excited about autonomous vehicles?
Well, autonomous vehicle, because in fact we are moving from a period of time where the car is a slave, you know, you brake, you start, to a partner. Now he's giving you information, adapting to what you want, and we have the pieces of technology to do it. What does it mean? The car is your partner. For example, today we have the devices in which you get to the car can measure your temperature, it can define what's your mood, it can switch the music you adapted to you in function of you're excited, you're angry, you're frustrated, you're happy. It can lower the temperature into the car or heighten it. It can detect an accident 1 or 2 miles in front of you and change the lane or slow the temperature or reroute you. There are a lot of things where the car can become your partner. That means you don't have to decide, it will decide for you as long as you have pre-programmed it for it. Why I think autonomous driving is going to be a big thing for the car industry. A lot of objective reasons. The first one is we want 0 accident. Any car company would like 0 accident. The only way you move to 0 accident is autonomous driving, because 95% of accidents happening on the street are human mistake. If you eliminate human mistake, you eliminate accident. That's number 1. Number 2, a baby born today has 50% of probability to live 100 years. A lot of people lose their driving license at 75, 70, 80 years old. So if you can imagine that a big part of the world population moving toward 100 years old, and you start losing your driving license at 70, 75 years old, you have a problem, because the last 20 years are going to be a little bit difficult without autonomous transportation. The only way you're going to solve it is autonomous driving, because autonomous driving, you can be handicapped, you can have a lot of physical problem, impairment, and you can still get into the car, input the address, and the car will drive you there. So for me, it's a need in terms of safety. It's a need in terms of expansion of autonomous transportation. It's good for us because it's an expansion of our market, but also it's going to be an essential element for senior people. And the pieces of technology are ready. We have the different technologies that allow us. Our estimate is today we have already announced officially that autonomous driving will take place as mass-marketed cars by 2020. We have already authorization in Japan, and I know that there are some authorization in the United States to allow autonomous driving testing on the road.
So my last question before I open it up to the floor for Q&A, the question that the Dean asks all of us when we apply to Stanford Business School is, what matters most to you and why? How would you answer that today?
What matters most? Well, I think what matters most is making a difference. That's what matters most. I mean, making a difference. I mean, it can be professionally, but it can be socially. It can be as a father. It can be as professor, as academician. You want to make a difference. That's what matters most. You want to say, well, I'm dedicating part of my life to do this. I want to have the impression that I made a difference, no matter how you measure this difference. But the way you measure the difference must be important for you. Okay? I think that's what matters all the time. As long as you think you can make a difference, while you have the motivation to pursue whatever you're pursuing. And I'm not talking only on the field of professional life. I'm talking also on the field of the personal life, or on contributing to ONG, or contributing to other things in life. I think this is, for me, the most important thing, that you can see that what you're doing is something where you know that if you were not there, things would have been different. And hopefully by you being there, you know, part of a team or part of a company is going to get better. Well, obviously, when you turn around the situation, you have a huge satisfaction, because you say, oh, you know, I was here, I was part of the team who made this transformation. Okay, so it's obvious. But in some other cases, it's a little bit more difficult to see.
Thank you so much. So we'll move to questions from the audience. The session is being recorded, so it's important to have a microphone before you ask a question. So please raise your hand, and one of the ushers will bring the microphones around.
Here you go. Please stand up.
Thank you very much for the interview. So I have a question about the terminology of the monozukuri, and it means creating something in Japanese. And you said in Nissan, monozukuri covers everything, every step in value chain, from R&D to marketing. And my sense is in Japan, sometimes the Japanese companies too much focus on monozukuri, and they focus on R&D and technology, trying to have some innovation from technological side, and fail to attract the customers and the market. So my feeling is they should shift the mindset on monozukuri and try to focus more on the market side. So what do you see this trend, and how do you think the monozukuri hinders the Japanese companies to try to articulate the customers' needs?
Yeah, well, no, I think it's a great observation to say Japanese companies have a tendency to try to create innovation out of technology too much versus other companies who are going to go and try to assess or needs or aspiration from consumers. That's why I believe that alliances between companies of different cultures are so powerful, because each one brings with his own culture his own strength. And in our case, if you can marry the strengths of the monozukuri in Japan to the creativity which comes with the French approach. And as you know, we have a partnership with Daimler, with which we develop also a lot of technology. So when you bring companies, as long as the company remain autonomous, obviously, because if you merge all of this, then automatically you're going to blend everything into one culture, and you're going to lose some of the benefit from diversity. As long as you can make company with different culture working together, you're going to get the best out of every single culture. But I agree with you, and that if you are monocultural, the risk of you being too much benefiting from your own strengths and ignoring your own weaknesses are very big. That's why having Japanese company working with the German company, working with the French company is such a delight, because we come to solutions that we could have never imagined by ourselves, no matter where we're coming from. So I totally agree with you. That's why I think Japanese company, coupled with other company, as long as they know how to make these things happen, can be extremely, extremely efficient.
Someone back there? Sorry.
Yep.
Oh,
Hi,
sorry.
I'm Vanessa from MX program. Thanks for coming. My question is about common sense. You talked about when you arrived in Japan and you used your common sense to make some decisions, to make some decisions about the process, things like that. But my observation is that a lot of leaders, they don't have the common sense you talked about. I want to know, how to get the common sense? Did you have it on the first day when you were working, or was there a process? Thanks.
Yeah. Well, you know, yeah, how do you get common sense? This is an interesting question, huh? How do you get common sense? Well, you know, common sense means, but we are human beings, we have aspiration, and from time to time we get off track. No matter who we are, at what position we are, we get off track. And common sense is what brings you back on track. When I went to Nissan, common sense indicated that I was coming to Nissan and accepted in Japan for one reason, is fixing Nissan, period. I was not there to make a show. I was not there to lecture Japan about what needs to be done, even though a lot of people, were calling for these kind of things. So every time I never deviated from my mission, because I had this, whatever we call it, common sense, bringing that by saying, you're here, you're in this job because people want you to fix the company, period. Okay? That's common sense. Common sense means go back to the basics, go back to the fundamental needs, and make sure you understand, what's your contribution, what's the expectation from you. I agree with you from time to time, some people lack common sense. It's very unlikely they're going to get to leadership position, in my opinion, particularly in the business world. Very unlikely. Some of them escape. But the most frequent thing is people lose common sense after they come to leadership position. And this is a real risk. That's why I think having strong teams and strong boards which are focused on these are the essential things we need to do are absolutely important. So if you lose your common sense, somebody's going to remind you, that's why you are here, and that's what you're expecting from you. But I agree with you. It happens that you can lose your common sense.
In the back row over there.
Hi, I'm Alex, a second-year MBA student. I'm curious to get your view on developing countries, both from your company perspective, as well as us, a student. How can we capture the growth in emerging countries?
There are a lot of literature today on emerging market. 3 years ago, as you know, 4 years ago, sky was the limit. Today, a lot of people say this is the end of it, this was just a bust, etc. Emerging markets are here to grow, and they are here to grow for the long term. They're not all growing, they're not going to grow all on the same rate. Brazil is not going to grow at the same rate than China, it's not going to grow at the same rate than India or Russia or Myanmar or Vietnam or Cambodia or Mexico. Everyone has a different reality. But there are some things which are absolutely fundamental, is that all of them are going to grow. And depending on the field that you are considering, you can estimate what kind of growth is going to happen. You don't know what's the timing of the growth, how much time it's going to take, but you know what is the size of the growth. Let me give you an example, and I'm going to come back to the car industry. Today, you have about 700 cars per 1,000 residents in the United States. You have about 500 cars per 1,000 residents in Europe. Okay? You have less than 100 cars per 1,000 residents in China. You have less than 50 cars per 1,000 residents in India. You have less than 200 cars per 1,000 residents in Russia. You have less than 300 cars per 1,000 residents in Brazil. Imagining that Brazil, India, Russia, and China are going to remain at a lower level of motorization than Europe is ridiculous. I mean, all these countries are going to grow, and they're going to reach at least the level of Portugal or Spain, if not more. So when you are in China, in the case of China, at less than 100 cars per 1,000 inhabitants, and Portugal is at 500, you can imagine that the Chinese market is going to continue to grow a lot, particularly when you know that the government of China is investing massively in infrastructure, which is one of the limitations for which maybe it's not going to happen, investing massively in infrastructure, investing massively in education, investing massively in everything which is going to trigger this will to have autonomous transportation. So back to your question, I think developing countries are a huge and tremendous opportunity for companies, for young people. I was 2 days ago having a lunch with a Brazilian entrepreneur, and he was telling me, if I was 23 years old today, I would go to Myanmar. He's in Brazil. I say, why? He say, well, I see in Myanmar the way Brazil was 30 years ago. 60 million inhabitants, very rich country, economy totally mismanaged, willingness to open the country. And I say, I have the impression that I know how this is going to go, and I want to benefit from it. So you're going to have a repetition in a different way of stories. But my point is emerging markets are a huge opportunity as long as you have the lucidity to analyze each one of them by itself and see all the metrics which matter for your industry or your area of interest. But it's not going to be linear. You're going to have ups and downs and stabilization and consolidation and then acceleration. Without any doubt, it's a huge opportunity.
Over here on stage left.
Thank you for your presentation. My name is Chris Davis. I'm doing a Fulbright scholarship from London. It's probably a very simple question, but in terms of personality traits or common themes, either in what you need to be in your position or similar roles at your level in terms of common personality traits to be successful?
Frankly, I don't think you have a lot of things in common between, if you take, for example, the 1,000 largest company in the world today, I don't think you can say there is something common to all these people. And you can, I mean, I can see it personally because every year I go to Davos, which is the largest concentration of CEO in the world at a certain place, and we meet a lot of people, you know, and it's very interesting because we meet Russian CEOs and Chinese CEOs and Indian CEOs and Brazilians and Vietnamese and Cambodian, and they're coming all over the world, and you will say, oh, there must be something common between all the, no, the approach is completely different. I don't think you can say there is one single attribute or a little bit of commonality between all these people. I don't think so. Certainly, there is, all of them want somehow to contribute, that's for sure. A lot of them do not take no for an answer. You know, there are some things like this, but actually in terms of personality, approach, drive, I don't think there is something common.
Okay, this will be the last question. Is there back here, back row again?
Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. On your point about electric cars, as you well know, building out an electric charging infrastructure both has chicken and egg problems. Someone has to move first, and it's a highly regulated space. So as we're a group of MBAs, what's the one thing that you would recommend that we as MBAs focus on if we want to see that built out?
I would say today we are concentrating, that means large companies who are investing on electric cars are concentrating on these areas of the world where leaders of the countries see a problem behind too much dependence on oil and CO2 emissions being not something fabricated artificially, but a real threat. Okay, so whenever you have these two elements, then we are around the table. I'm going to give you an example. I sat down with I'm Brazilian. I sat down with the president of Brazil. We are talking electric cars. Immediately, I've seen that she was not a believer in electric cars. I said, okay, that's fine, no problem. We're not going to concentrate our efforts on Brazil. We are concentrating our efforts on China. We're going to concentrate our efforts in Japan. We're going to concentrate our efforts in the United States because there are leaders here who are saying, well, you know what? Too much dependence on oil is a problem, and CO2 is not something fabricated. It is something real, and if we don't pay attention to this, we're going to have serious problem. So what I would like to tell you is, as if you want to go into this area, which is environmentally friendly transportation, and particularly with electric cars, first, you need to make sure that you're dealing with people who don't consider it only as a business, but consider it as a must. I mean, when you have a problem of the size of the CO2 emission, and you have the solution to this problem, you just cannot ignore it by saying, you know what, it's not the time, I'm going to wait until something happens before I jump in. No, we have a solution, we have the technology, we need to move it in, and we're going to have to find our way to make it a reality of the business. From time to time, it may take a lot of efforts, it may take a lot of investments. Your efforts cannot be rewarded. But when it will take off, in my opinion, it's going to be absolutely tremendous. So my point is, just find allies who are not only see it as an opportunity, but are convinced that it is the right solution, and the technology in terms of battery, motor, inverter, everything is moving very fast. So I don't think we're going to add too much to it. Everything which is around the charging system still needs to evolve, lowering the cost of the fast charging, going to systems that allow you to charge the car in a very convenient way. When we started with the fast charging, we had the 40 minutes charge. Now we are at 20 minutes. We have offer from some suppliers coming to less than 10 minutes. We have people offering a system where when you're driving your car on a highway, you can charge through the wheels. That means there is an explosion of ideas coming, and I think this is where innovation is going to take place. But I have no doubt on the fact that the technologies that will protect the environment and allow at the same time the explosion of autonomous transportation, particularly through the development of emerging market, is a huge mind.
So thank you so much for spending the time with us today, and on behalf of the entire Stanford Graduate School of Business, Mr. Ghosn, thank you for your time, and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Steve.